Hyperbolas are a similar format as an ellipse. The equation is basically the same type of setup, but there's a subtraction instead of an addition. And also notice that there's always an A that goes first. A does not have to be greater than B, such as in ellipses. But the main focus on these equations is what is the first variable that's squared. Is it an x squared? Is it a y squared? If it's x squared, then the horizontal line is going to be a transverse axis, which means the hyperbola is going to open left and right. If the y squared is first, the hyperbola is going to open up and down. So when you do this, you're going to identify certain aspects of the hyperbola. One is what is your A equal, what is your B equal, and what is your center. If you can identify, and what is the orientation, and if you can identify that, then you can draw the hyperbola. Now, I'm going to show on this graph that we can draw boxes in to both of these hyperbolas. And that's the way of identifying what the hyperbola looks like. And so when I put those boxes in, there is an A and a B component. And the A and B component are basically reflected in the orientation. So this, from this distance to here, is going to be A, and this distance here is going to be B. And if you can identify what these corners are, then you can basically draw the asymptotes right through the corners and then fit in the two parabolas. Same thing here. Now this orientation, this is going to be your A because it's the focus, and this is going to be your B. There are two terms that you're looking at. One is the transverse axis, and the other is a conjugate axis. Transverse axis transverses through the part of the hyperbola. It contains the vertices. And the conjugate axis is going to be the other one. Also notice that you have c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Makes sense. The focus now has a greater length from the center than the vertex. Let's take a look at a couple problems. First of all, looking at this one, I want to identify all of the key parts. The center is 0, 0. My A is equal to the square root of 25, B square root of 36, and I want to also identify which way it's going to open up. So the transverse axis is going to be horizontal. This is the center. Your A is 5 units out, and your B is going to be 6. And at this point, I can go ahead and put in the points and draw my asymptotes. The asymptotes are going to go right through the corners of those points. And the other part is that you want to identify the vertices. And after that, you can go ahead and draw in the parabolas. Quick way of drawing the hyperbola. Looking at this one, I'm noticing that the y is first. With the y first, that means that it's going to open up and down. My A is equal to 5, B is equal to 3, and my center is equal to a -2, 3. Again, I'm going to go ahead and draw in the center. -2, 3 is going to be up here. Notice I am putting points in the graph. I want to see what I'm looking at. A graph without points is going to be meaningless. And so now my A is going to go up and down from here. So it's 5 units up and 5 units down. So it's 8 and -2. So that's going to be this point and this point. I'm working on that box. And my B is 3. So it's going to be here 1, and -5. That means that your points are now going to be here, 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 and here. And again, you're going to draw these dashed lines, which are going to be your asymptotes. And when you put those asymptotes in, then you're going to go ahead and draw in the parabola through those vertices to complete the hyperbola. Now, if you wanted an equation for this asymptote, you would know that you're going to have a slope, and the slope is going to be, for example, you're going to look at the change in y over change in x. So the change in y is going to go from 8 to -2, or that's going to be 10, and the change in x is going to be from -5 to 1, so it's going to be 6, and so it's going to be 10 over 6. That's the slope of this line, and you can get the point of that too, which is actually the center. The center is -2, 3. So with the slope and the point, you can plug it in y equals mx plus b and get the equation of that asymptote. So there are a couple examples of drawing hyperbolas. Again, the focus is what is being squared first, identify the orientation, center A and B, and go ahead and draw the box, and then think about the asymptotes in the hyperbola.